In the quiet village of Amuaka, surrounded by thick forests and red earth, there lived an old man whom no one could truly understand. His name was Baba Okechukwu. People said he had lived for over 150 years. They could not remember when he was born, and there was no record of his youth. Some said he had seen the time of their great-grandfathers. Others whispered that he had been there since the first chief built the village. The children often joked that Baba Okechukwu had seen every sunrise since the world began. But behind the laughter there was fear. He was tall and thin, with a beard so white it looked like cotton. His back was bent with age, yet his eyes burned bright like hot coals. Every morning he walked slowly through the village, leaning on his carved wooden staff. When he passed, even dogs went silent. He lived alone in a small hut at the edge of the forest, where the ground sloped down to a narrow stream. The hut was old, built from mud and palm branches, yet it never fell apart. At night, people saw light flickering from his window and smoke curling from his roof. Sometimes strange humming floated through the air, a deep, slow song that sounded like a prayer. No one knew what language he spoke. Many in Amuaka said Baba Okechukwu had made a secret deal with death. Others said he ate herbs that made him immortal. Some even believed he was no longer fully human, that he walked between the world of the living and the dead. The young were told never to go near his home after dark. The elders respected him but kept their distance. "Do not disturb what you do not understand," they warned. And so for years he lived alone, a shadow in the life of the village. But there was one boy who was never afraid of him. His name was Chima, the son of a fisherman. Every evening when others ran home, Chima would walk by Baba Okechukwu's hut and wave. "Good evening, Baba," he would say cheerfully. The old man would look up, his wrinkled face softening into a faint smile. "Evening, my child. The world is not ready for my rest yet," he always replied. That simple exchange became a daily ritual. Chima would stop for a few minutes, sometimes helping Baba fetch water or gather firewood. Baba would tell short stories, not about himself but about the land, the river, and the spirits that protected their ancestors. Chima listened carefully, though he did not understand everything the old man said. One afternoon, while the sun burned low in the sky, Chima asked, "Baba, is it true that you can't die?" Baba Okechukwu looked at him quietly for a long time. Then he smiled. "People say many things when they do not know the truth. I am still here because my time has not come. The earth has not yet taken back what it gave." Chima frowned, confused. "But you are so old. My great-grandfather said he saw you when he was a boy." "Yes," the old man said softly. "I have seen many seasons, many floods, and many wars. I have buried the young and the old. But still I live." There was sadness in his voice, though his face stayed calm. Chima didn't ask again. He could tell there was something the man wasn't saying. That night, when Chima went home and told his mother he had spoken to Baba Okechukwu, she gasped. "You went there again?" she scolded. "You must not. That man carries a curse. People who go near him lose their spirit." "But Mama," Chima said, "he is kind. He even told me stories." His mother shook her head. "Kind or not, some kindness comes from places we cannot see. Stay away, my son." Still, the boy couldn't forget the old man's calm eyes and the quiet sadness behind them. He began to wonder if Baba Okechukwu was lonely, trapped in a life that never ended. As the days passed, strange things began to happen in Amuaka. Crops grew tall but never ripened. Chickens laid eggs that would not hatch. Old people said it was a bad sign. "The spirits are restless," one woman whispered. "They wait for something to end, but it refuses." The villagers looked toward the forest, toward the small hut that never went dark. "Maybe the old man is keeping the spirits from resting," someone muttered. "Maybe his time should have come long ago." But no one dared speak those words aloud near him. Whenever Baba Okechukwu walked through the market, people lowered their voices and moved aside. Some made signs of protection with their hands. Yet strangely the air around him always felt calm. He never harmed anyone. He only nodded and kept walking, his staff tapping softly on the ground. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, Chima saw Baba sitting by the riverbank, staring at the water. He looked even older that day, as if the years had suddenly caught up with him. The boy sat beside him without a word. After a long silence, the old man spoke. "Chima, do you know what it means to wait too long for something?" The boy shook his head. "It means your heart grows heavy," Baba said. "The world changes around you, but you remain. You see generations rise and fall, and still you stand, until even the wind forgets your name." Chima didn't understand it all, but the sadness in his tone made his chest ache. He wanted to say something, but before he could, Baba smiled again, the same quiet smile that never reached his eyes. "Go home now, my child," he said. "Night falls and old things wake when the moon rises." As Chima stood and began to leave, he looked back once more. The old man was still sitting by the river, his reflection trembling on the water's surface like a ghost between worlds. No one knew it then, but something was beginning to change. The whispers about Baba Okachukwu would soon grow louder, and the secret behind his long life, the truth no one dared to ask, was about to be revealed. A year passed and the peaceful life of Umuaka began to crumble. It started slowly, first with a strange fever that made people weak, then with a deep cough that refused to go away. The sickness did not choose between old and young. Strong men fell ill and healthy children stopped playing in the fields. The market grew silent, and even the sound of drums disappeared from the evenings. But through it all, Baba Okachukwu remained the same. He still rose at dawn, walked to the stream, and returned before the sun grew hot. His steps were slow but steady. His skin, though wrinkled, never lost its strange glow. He ate little, spoke little, and did not seem touched by the disease that had entered every other home. People began to whisper again, more fearfully than before. "How is it that he still lives?" they asked. "Even the strong have fallen, but he still walks as if death does not see him." One morning an old woman wailed in the market after losing her last son. "He has stolen our years," she cried, pointing toward the forest. "He takes what belongs to us. That is why he lives so long." Others began to nod, their fear mixing with anger. Soon the whisper became a rumor, and the rumor became a belief. The villagers said Baba Okachukwu's long life was a curse that fed on their time. "He should have gone long ago," someone said. "If he dies, maybe the sickness will leave." The chief of the village, a tall man named Obioma, called a meeting under the great Irako tree. Everyone gathered, the sick, the weak, the angry. "We must speak with Baba Okachukwu," the chief said firmly. "If he carries a secret, it may be tied to what troubles us." But when he asked who would go, silence filled the air. No one wanted to approach the old man's hut. They feared what they might find. Some said he kept bones in his house. Others claimed to have seen strange shadows moving at night. At last, a voice broke the silence. "I will go." It was Chima, no longer the small boy who used to wave at Baba, but now a young man of 16, tall and brave. "He has never harmed me," he said. "If there is truth to find, I will ask him." His mother tried to stop him, her eyes full of worry. "My son, some truths are better left hidden," she said. But Chima only bowed his head. "Mama, the village is dying. If Baba knows something, we must learn it." That night, as the moon hung low and pale, Chima took a lantern and walked toward the forest. The path was quiet except for the sound of crickets. Each step felt heavier than the last. The air grew colder as he neared the old hut. When he reached the door, he saw smoke rising through a crack in the roof. The faint sound of humming came from inside, deep and slow, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. Chima took a deep breath and stepped closer. He knocked gently. "Baba, it's me," he said. There was no answer. He pushed the door open. The small hut was lit only by firelight. The walls were lined with wooden carvings, faces, animals, symbols he didn't understand. In the middle of the room sat Baba Okachukwu, his back bent, his face glowing in the orange light. He was whispering softly to something wrapped in old white cloth on the floor. For a moment, Chima froze. The old man's voice sounded like a chant, the kind used in ancient rituals. His tone was calm, almost sad. "Baba," Chima said softly, taking a cautious step forward. The old man looked up slowly. His eyes reflected the firelight, sharp yet kind. "Ah, Chima," he said. "You should not be here. The night listens." Chima swallowed hard. "I came because the people are afraid," he said. "They say your long life is stealing our years." Baba Okachukwu gave a tired smile. "They think death can be stolen? No, my child. Death waits for everyone, but mine has been delayed." Chima glanced at the wrapped bundle. "What are you whispering to, Baba?" The old man's eyes followed his. He sighed. "A memory," he said quietly. "Something I have kept for too long." He reached down and slowly unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a small, carved wooden mask, smooth and dark, with eyes that seemed alive. It looked ancient, older than the village itself. "This belonged to my father," Baba said. "He was a keeper of secrets, the kind our people have forgotten. Before he died, he told me never to destroy it. He said it carried life." "Life?" Chima repeated. "Yes," the old man said. "Not just for me but for all who come after. It binds me to this world." As long as I keep it, I cannot die. Chima stared at the mask, both fascinated and frightened. Then why not destroy it? Why live so long? Baba's face turned sorrowful. Because it is not so simple. When the gift of life is taken by force, it becomes a chain. It binds not only the one who holds it but also the land. That is why the sickness spreads. The balance has grown weak. Life and death must walk together, not apart. Chima's breath trembled. Then what can we do? The old man looked at the fire, his eyes reflecting the flames. I have carried this curse too long, he said softly. But maybe it is time. He reached for Chima's hand and placed the mask in it. The one who was born without fear must end what began with fear, he whispered. Chima shook his head quickly. I can't take this, Baba. I don't understand. You will, Baba said gently. Go now. Leave before the moon disappears. Chima hesitated, but something in the old man's voice told him to listen. He stepped back toward the door, still holding the mask. Just before he left, he looked back one last time. Baba Okachukwu sat still by the fire, his face calm, his hands resting on his knees as though he were waiting for something, or someone. When Chima returned to the village, dawn was breaking. He didn't tell anyone what he had seen, not even his mother. But from that night on he began to dream of the mask, and of an old man who whispered his name from the edge of the forest. The people still feared Baba Okachukwu. But Chima now feared something else, the truth that the old man had given him, a truth too heavy for a boy to carry alone. Chima stepped further into the dimly lit hut. The air inside was thick with the smell of herbs and smoke. The fire in the middle of the room burned low, its flickering light dancing across the old man's wrinkled face. Baba Okachukwu sat cross-legged on a mat, his back straight, his eyes half closed as though caught between two worlds. Chima held the lantern close and spoke softly, his voice trembling. Baba, the village is afraid. They say you cannot die. For a moment there was no answer, only the sound of the fire crackling. Then the old man lifted his head slowly. His voice was deep and quiet, like wind moving through trees. They fear what they do not understand, he said. I do not refuse to die. I am only waiting to finish what I began. His words made Chima's heart beat faster. Finish what? He asked. Baba Okachukwu turned his gaze toward the corner of the hut, where the same cloth from before lay on a wooden stool. He pointed to it with a trembling finger. Come, he said. Look closely, but do not touch unless I tell you. Chima approached carefully. He untied the edge of the cloth and saw something he had never seen before, a small round calabash covered in carvings. Strange symbols were etched across its surface, glowing faintly in the firelight. A faint hum seemed to come from it, like the low beat of a distant drum. What is that? Chima asked in awe. Baba Okachukwu's eyes softened. My heart, he whispered. Chima's mouth fell open. Your heart. The old man nodded slowly. Many years ago, before your father's father was born, this land faced great sorrow. The rivers dried, the crops failed, and spirits of the dead walked freely among the living. The people cried for help, but no god answered. He reached out and touched the calabash gently, his fingers shaking. Then I went to the sacred hill of the ancestors. I prayed for 7 days and 7 nights without food or water. On the last night the wind spoke. It said, if you wish to save your people, you must give what is yours and take what is not meant for men. Chima listened closely, his breath shallow. What did you give? My death, Baba said. I traded it for time to protect this land until balance returned. My spirit was bound inside this calabash, and as long as it remains whole, I live. But when it breaks, my spirit will finally rest. The fire crackled loudly as if to answer his words. Chima stared at the ancient vessel, his heart filled with wonder and fear. Then why not end it, Baba? He asked softly. Why not let it break? The old man smiled faintly, though his eyes were full of sorrow. Because the curse is not only mine, he said. The bargain tied me to the land itself. If I die before my task is done, the darkness I once held back will return. It sleeps beneath the earth, waiting for the seal to break. Chima frowned. Darkness. Baba nodded slowly. You have seen only the shadow of it, the sickness that spreads through the people, the hunger, the fear. But if the calabash breaks before the balance is restored, it will awaken fully. Rivers will turn black, and the earth will swallow the village whole. Chima stepped back, his lantern trembling in his hand. So the sickness, it is part of the curse? It is a warning, Baba replied. The earth grows tired and I grow weak. The spell that binds me also binds the land. One cannot heal without the other. For a moment, silence filled the room. The fire dimmed and the shadows grew long. Chima stared at the old man, at his weary eyes and frail body. He had thought Baba was a monster, a thief of life. But now he saw something different, not evil but sacrifice. "Baba," he said gently, "is there no way to end the curse without your death?" The old man took a deep breath. "There is one way," he said. "But it must be done by one who walks without fear." His eyes lifted toward Chima. "The same courage that brought you here may also be what saves us." Chima's voice shook. "What must I do?" "You must take the calabash to the sacred hill," Baba said. "There, under the tree of ancestors, you must speak the words of release. But be warned, the darkness will fight to stop you. It knows that once the balance is restored, it will have no hold over this land again." The boy hesitated. "And what will happen to you?" The old man smiled faintly, his eyes shining in the firelight. "When the balance returns, my spirit will go where it was meant to go long ago. Death is not my enemy, Chima. It is the rest I have waited for." The words hung heavy in the air. Chima wanted to speak, but his throat tightened. He could not imagine the village without the old man who had watched generations grow and fade. Outside, the wind began to rise, brushing against the hut. The flames danced higher, throwing light across Baba's lined face. "Go now," the old man said softly. "The night is short and the gods grow impatient." Chima nodded slowly, though fear tugged at his heart. He reached out and touched the calabash, not with fear but with respect. The hum grew stronger, and for a brief moment he felt something. A pulse, faint but alive, like a heartbeat that belonged to both man and earth. "I will not fail you," Chima said quietly. Baba Okachukwu smiled. "Then the land still has hope." As Chima turned to leave, the firelight flickered behind him. He could feel the old man's gaze follow him until he stepped out into the cold night. The moon hung low, and the forest whispered softly as if aware of what had begun. In the silence, Chima tightened his grip on the calabash and whispered to himself, "If this is the secret that keeps him alive, then it is also the secret that can save us all." He did not look back as he disappeared into the darkness, carrying both the hope of the village and the heart of a man who had lived too long for the sake of love and duty. For 3 days and nights, rain poured over Umuaka without stopping. The sky stayed dark, the air heavy, and the land groaned under the weight of the storm. The once clear stream that ran through the center of the village turned black like ink, and the water rose high enough to drown the crops. The people had never seen anything like it. The trees bent low, their roots soft in the flooded earth, and the goats bleated helplessly from their pens. The villagers gathered under the big tree near the chief's hut. Their faces were pale with fear. "This is not just rain," one man said. "The gods are angry." An older woman raised her trembling hands. "It is him," she cried. "That old man has lived too long. His spirit has angered the land. He brings this upon us." Murmurs spread quickly through the crowd. "Yes," another shouted. "He steals our years. He has cursed us all." Soon the fear turned into anger. People picked up sticks, torches, and stones. "We must end this," they cried. "He must not live another day." But before they could move toward the forest path that led to Baba Okachukwu's hut, a voice rang out through the rain. "Stop." It was Chima. He was drenched from head to toe, his lantern barely burning in the wind, but his eyes were fierce. He pushed his way through the crowd, panting, his hands raised. "You don't understand," he shouted. "He is not your enemy." The villagers stared at him. The chief frowned. "What are you saying, boy?" Chima took a deep breath. "I went to him. I saw what you fear. I know his secret, and it is not evil. He is the reason we still have life in this land." The crowd murmured again, confused. Chima climbed onto a rock so they could see him. "Many years ago," he began, "Baba Okachukwu made a promise to the gods. When the world was dying, he gave up his own death. He traded it so that this land could live. His heart was placed inside a calabash, sealed with sacred words. As long as it remains whole, he lives, and the land is safe." The villagers gasped. "You lie," someone shouted. But Chima's voice did not waver. "No, it is the truth. The sickness, the flood, the fear, all of it is because his strength is fading. He has carried our burden for 154 years. The darkness that once tried to destroy Umuaka still sleeps beneath the earth. It waits for him to die. He has not refused death for himself, he has done it for us." Silence fell over the crowd. Only the sound of rain filled the air. Faces that were twisted with anger now showed confusion and guilt. Some lowered their sticks. Others looked toward the forest, where smoke still rose faintly from Baba Okachukwa's hut. The chief stepped forward, his voice quieter now. "If what you say is true, boy, then why does the land still suffer?" Chima lowered his head. "Because his promise is almost complete. He told me that when the balance returns he must go. He cannot hold it forever. The flood is a sign, the curse is breaking." Just then a loud crack of thunder shook the earth. The people gasped as lightning flashed across the sky, and in that white light they saw him. Baba Okachukwu stood at the edge of the square, leaning on his staff. Rain poured over his thin frame, but he did not seem to notice. His eyes glowed faintly just as they always had, like burning embers that refused to die. The villagers stepped back, their fear returning for a moment. But then he smiled. "Do not be afraid," he said softly, his voice barely rising above the sound of the storm. "The time has come." Chima ran toward him. "Baba." The old man placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You spoke truth," he said. "They know now. The land is safe again." The villagers watched in silence as Baba Okachukwu lifted his gaze toward the sky. "I have waited many years for this day," he said. "The balance has been restored. The darkness has lost its hold. My promise is complete." He reached into the folds of his old robe and brought out the calabash. The faint glow from its carvings was stronger now, pulsing like a heartbeat. Chima could feel its warmth even through the heavy rain. "Take it," Baba said, pressing it into the boy's trembling hands. "When the sun rises you must break it." Chima's eyes widened. "But Baba, if I do that?" The old man nodded. "Yes. My spirit will be free. My time here will end. The land will breathe again." Tears filled Chima's eyes, but he nodded slowly. "I understand." Baba Okachukwu smiled. "You have done well, my child. You have courage, the kind I once had when I was young. Do not fear what must come." The rain began to ease. The thunder rolled away into the distance. The villagers watched as the old man turned from the square and began to walk back toward the forest. Each step seemed lighter, as if he was leaving behind the weight of more than a century. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft patter of rain on the roofs. As he reached the path to his hut, a small breeze swept through the village, warm, gentle, and full of peace. Baba Okachukwu paused for a moment, leaning on his staff. He looked back once, his eyes meeting Chima's across the open square. "Remember," he said quietly, "death is not an end, it is a return." Then he turned and continued walking until his figure faded into the curtain of rain and mist. The villagers stood still for a long time. Some wept quietly. Others bowed their heads in shame. They had called him cursed, but now they understood. He had been their protector, their shield against the darkness. Chima clutched the calabash tightly to his chest. Its glow flickered like a dying flame. He knew what he had to do. As the last drops of rain fell, the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon. The storm was ending. The land was quiet again. And in that silence, one truth filled every heart in Amuaka. The man they had feared most had loved them most deeply. When morning came, the village of Amuaka was quiet. The storm had passed, leaving behind a deep calm that no one had felt in years. Mist floated above the wet ground, and the first rays of sunlight painted the huts in gold. Birds began to sing again, softly at first, then louder, as if the earth itself was waking from a long sleep. Chima stood in the center of the village square, holding the calabash tightly in both hands. It no longer glowed as it had the night before. Instead it was dull, almost lifeless, but still warm to his touch. Around him, the villagers gathered silently. No one shouted, no one whispered. They only watched. The chief stepped forward slowly. "Is this what he asked you to do?" he said in a quiet voice. Chima nodded. "Yes." Baba said, "When the sun rises, I must break it. That will set him free, and bring peace to the land." The chief looked at the rising sun and then back at Chima. "Then do what must be done, my son." Chima looked at the sky. The sun was now just above the horizon, glowing brighter with each passing moment. He felt his hands trembling. For a moment he hesitated. It felt wrong to destroy the last piece of Baba Okachukwu. But then in the wind he heard a faint whisper. It was as if the old man's voice was still there, saying softly, "The world is ready for my rest." He took a deep breath and raised the calabash high above his head. The villagers held their breath. Then with one swift motion he threw it down onto the earth. The calabash shattered into countless pieces. A rush of warm wind swept through the square, circling the people like a living thing. The trees swayed and the huts trembled slightly, but no one was afraid. The wind felt alive, gentle, clean, and full of peace. It brushed across their faces, and for the first time in many years, everyone smiled. Then the wind rose toward the sky, forming a small spiral of light before fading into the morning sun. When it was over, Chima opened his eyes. The air was still again. The ground glistened where the calabash had broken, and the sun shone brighter than anyone could remember. The heavy clouds that had covered the sky for days were gone. The chief spoke softly. "It is done." Together, the villagers walked toward Baba Okachukwa's hut. They moved slowly with respect and silence, as though they were entering a sacred place. The door creaked open when Chima pushed it, and sunlight poured into the dark hut. But there was no one inside. The small fire had burned out. The mat where the old man used to sit was empty. Only his wooden staff stood in the ground, upright and steady, as though someone had placed it there with care. The villagers stared in awe. No footprints led away from the hut. No sign of struggle or movement. It was as if Baba Okachukwu had simply melted into the air, or returned to the earth that had once given him life. Chima stepped forward and touched the staff. It was warm, just like the calabash had been before it broke. He knelt beside it and whispered, "Rest now, Baba. Your promise is kept." Behind him, the chief bowed his head. The others followed, men and women alike, until the whole village knelt in silence before the empty hut. Some cried quietly. Others smiled through their tears. They all understood now that Baba Okachukwu had never been a curse. He had been their guardian, their strength. In the days that followed, the world around Amuaka began to change. The dark water in the stream cleared, turning blue again. The fields, which had been drowned and ruined, began to sprout new green shoots. The air smelled fresh and birds returned to their nests. It was as though the land had taken a deep breath after holding it for 100 years. The people of Amuaka rebuilt what the storm had destroyed. Their huts were repaired, the children laughed again, and the nights were filled with calm instead of fear. As for Chima, he grew wiser with each passing year. The villagers began to seek his advice, and in time he became their leader, the youngest elder Amuaka had ever known. But though his beard grew gray and his back bent with age, he never forgot the night he stood before the man who had lived too long for the sake of others. Every year, on the day the rain had stopped, Chima gathered the children beneath the big tree in the square. He would sit with them, his walking stick beside him, and tell them the story. "There was once a man," he would begin, "who refused to die, not because he feared death, but because he loved his people too much to leave them." The children would listen wide-eyed, some frightened, some amazed. One would always ask, "But Elder Chima, was he evil like they said?" Chima would smile gently. "No," he would answer. "He was not evil. He lived long because the land needed him. He carried our pain so that we could live in peace." And when another child asked, "How old was he truly?" Chima would chuckle softly and look toward the horizon. "Old enough," he would say, "to keep his promise." The staff that had been left behind still stood in Baba Okachukwa's hut, untouched for generations. No one dared to move it. The villagers believed that as long as it remained standing, their land would stay safe. Some nights, when the wind blew softly through the trees, people said they could still hear his voice, faint and calm, carried by the air. "The world is ready for my rest," it would whisper, reminding them that even the longest life must one day find peace. And so, the story of Baba Okachukwu, the man who lived 154 years, was passed from one generation to the next, not as a tale of fear but as one of sacrifice, love, and redemption. In Amuaka they no longer spoke his name with dread. They spoke it with gratitude. For they finally understood that immortality was not a gift for the selfish. It was a burden carried by the brave.